G'day everyone, welcome to the Copilot studio, and with me today I have Krist Kelly. Welcome Kristy, how are you?
I'm well, thanks for having me, Daniel.
Amazing to have you. Now, for everybody watching and listening, let's start with a little bit of an intro. Who is Kristy? What do you do? And where are you? And what's keeping you busy?
So I am the lead product manager of Copilot and Viva Engage at Microsoft. And I also work on a few of our other AI-powered experiences that are coming into Engage, as well as how we integrate with the broader Viva suite and even other Microsoft AI ongoings at Microsoft.
Amazing. Now, let's kick off with what is Copilot in Viva Engage. Copilot is obviously a very now generally available. The restrictions on seats and all that sort of stuff has come down, so it is becoming to be more accessible for everybody. How does Viva Engage interact with Copilot, or how does Copilot interact with Viva Engage?
Great question. Well, Viva, it's meant to equip organizations with the tools that they need to perform at their highest level. We have this great suite of tools, and they're all meant to support different aspects of employee engagement to power productivity and achievement. And Copilot in Viva supports leaders, employees, and all role types really to get the most out of each of those Viva tools and to use them together to achieve even more. So whatever your goal is as an organization, whether as an organization as a whole or pockets within an organization, Copilot across the Viva suite is meant to help you power pursuit of that goal in the most effective way and in a way that brings people together, so we feel like we're pursuing that goal as a unit. And specifically on Viva Engage, we see people from across an organization come together to build relationships through things like storylines, which is like an internal company profile that we have in Viva Engage. They also share knowledge through communities, and in different organizations there might be tens to hundreds of different communities, and they also pursue goals through constructs called campaigns within Viva Engage. And I'll give examples of campaigns later. But in each Viva network, in each Viva Engage network, whether there's 100 employees at your organization or 100,000 employees like at Microsoft, there are many ways to engage in ways that can create value for yourself or for your organization. And Copilot in Engage is meant to help, whether you're a leader, an employee, or a communicator, get the most out of Viva Engage by connecting you to the opportunities and the resources that are most valuable for you, and by helping you contribute your unique knowledge, achievements, and voice to the table, to the network. So if there's tons of content, tons of communities, campaigns, storylines for you to potentially be connecting with within Viva Engage, Copilot kind of understands all that on your behalf, and then suggests places where you can connect, and it facilitates you doing that connecting.
Yeah, very good. Now, obviously, a lot of content generation and content creation we see with ChatGPT, and now we're starting to see it with Copilot as well. Different parts of the business or different users are going to use Copilot in particular in different ways. So, executive teams are going to use it differently to marketing and comms and people that are, responsible for communicating across an organization. Now, there's been a lot of talk about authenticity and, that side of things especially with ChatGPT as well. Right. How is Copilot in Viva Engage, handling that aspect of AI or generative AI?
Great question. So there are kind of I heard two questions in your question. And one was a little bit about how do the different roles or different roles within an organization leverage Copilot and Viva Engage? And then the second one is, as I heard, how does each of those roles, if one key value proposition of Copilot in Viva Engage is to help you bring your voice to the network, how are we ensuring that AI-assisted or that co-piloted content creation is maintaining authenticity, it is truly your voice that you're bringing to the table? And maybe I'll start with, how do we expect the different roles to use Copilot and Viva Engage, and then we can deep dive into authenticity, which is a big area of focus for us within within Microsoft. So, so the different roles right now, version 1 of our Copilot, it centers around two value propositions that I described just before. The first one is helping you understand where to engage within your network. So by understanding activity in your network, Copilot is able to make personalized suggestions for you to do things like contribute to and catch up in your community. So whether you're an employee who's a member of those communities or an employee who created that community themselves, maybe you found that there wasn't an employee resource group that suited your needs, or you wanted to push forward AI innovation and AI learning, upskilling within your organization. You might have spun that up yourself, or you might have done that as a leader. Either way, there's this sense of someone has created this campaign. There's a set of people who are invested, the community. There's a set of people who are invested in the success of that community achieving some sort of outcome. And how do you ensure that all the members of your community are consistently contributing in a goals-aligned or purpose-aligned way? Well, that's one thing that Copilot can help do by understanding trends of conversation within the community, as well as the community goal description or purpose description that was set by the community manager or the leader of that community. Copilot then makes suggestions for community members to participate in the community at regular intervals, and when there's new information potentially to catch up on in that community or contribute to that community. So you can expect Copilot, whether you're a leader who's a sponsor of a campaign, a sponsor of a community, or an employee who's a member of that community, it'll be helping you stay connected and plugged into the things that matter to you most, like the communities that you're a member of, or those cross-org initiatives like we talked about.
So would you say that that's proactive as well, but Copilot's being proactive in that manner?
Yes, that is one of the aspects of our Copilot that is the most proactive. We're kind of guessing what you might want Copilot to be keeping you in touch with on Viva Engage. Like we talked about before, there could be so much content for you to be catching up with, or even just, because catching up with kind of implies that there's a sense of, oh, I know exactly what I need, and I'm going to jump right to this area of Viva Engage, and I'll just, go through my list of all these different places in Viva Engage that I want to keep up with. But there's this other area of Copilot being proactive where it's like, this might not have been on your to-do list of things to catch up on. Like maybe there's a new campaign that's spreading across your organization that you didn't even know about. I mean, I had an example of one recently where, actually two fun ones recently. Right now, there's this campaign going on to support diversity and inclusion efforts at Microsoft. Mm-hmm. And campaigns really are a great way to create cross-org visibility for resources or initiatives offered by, for example, Microsoft. Because in these campaigns, people from throughout the organization can share what resources they've leveraged that have been provided by Microsoft to support diversity and inclusion. Or they can share their stories, setting examples of how we live our Microsoft values to support diversity and inclusion. We can share, personal stories that can help us create meaningful connections between teammates. But I didn't even know that campaign was going on, and I found out about it by testing Copilot.
Okay, I mean,
so that's pretty fun.
That's a good point, because there's a lot of stuff going. I mean, especially not just Microsoft, but across different organizations. There's so much stuff going on,
totally,
that people will miss. And it's the same thing with emails and Copiloting in Outlook. We can now get our summaries, and so that we make it easier that we don't miss important things. Same with Microsoft Teams, but for organizations that are using Viva Engage as well as, Microsoft Teams, there's obviously going to be a lot of those campaigns or a lot of that activity that, up until now has probably been missed. And that's a really good example with you not knowing that campaign existed. And that's I think that's going to be a really common or maybe even a first really positive use case for Copilot, is that more things are going to be, presented to you. You're going to, it's going to make it easy to be aware of a lot of things that are happening across the organization and more easily.
Yeah, and things that meet your personal and professional interests or your needs for belonging, or just pursuing things you're excited about within the company. Another fun campaign example that I discovered by testing Copilot was we had a no-code AI campaign. And I'm pretty plugged into the AI community here at Microsoft. And this AI campaign had sprung out of a non-AI section of the company. And it was all people sharing stories of how they were leveraging tools like Copilot and ChatGPT to, power their productivity. And that was really fun because people were sharing ways of using Copilot and ChatGPT that other people just I'd never even thought of. Other people yeah, it's this really fun, like sparking of inspiration and creativity and yeah. So.
Now, while we're on campaigns, for many people that are watching and listening, I guess may not have even looked at Viva Engage in general anyway. Can you tell me a little bit about what campaigns are and what their purpose is?
Yes, I definitely can. So while I'm not the product management lead of campaigns, I might be one of campaigns' biggest fans, but because I love the capability of campaigns to set a clear goal, like sharing discoveries of how to leverage ChatGPT and Copilot tools to power productivity, and getting people from across an organization to contribute to that campaign and also get visibility for the experiences that other people are having or the resources that other people are leveraging to benefit them and to benefit, contribution towards the campaign goal. So campaigns really are just a way to, you set a goal. Let's say it's sharing learnings about how to leverage no-code AI. And then you get people from across. Viva Engage helps you create visibility for that campaign in people across the organization so that everyone can, for example, work together to accelerate understanding of and adoption of new technologies like ChatGPT and Copilot at Microsoft. And it might also be, like we talked about before, it's like a great way to create visibility for initiatives across the organization that are meant to support diversity and inclusion. Maybe you were in one aspect of the company sitting and wondering, I wonder if we're doing enough within my company to support diversity and inclusion. And then you get connected to this campaign and you're just kind of wowed at how, different people from across the organization are in many different ways pursuing and advocating for diversity and inclusion and setting a great example for it every day.
Yeah. Now, what about, a different use case, people that are creating content a lot, and maybe it is, a communications person in an organization. We might touch on executives and that type of thing that in a little bit where they might use it in a little bit of a different way. But from a content creation or generation point of view, how is Copilot helping those groups of people?
Yeah, so if we have two main value props of a Copilot and Viva Engage, one is that proactive, like help you connect with the value areas of Viva Engage that have been created by your organization. And then two is like helping you inject your voice more easily and more consistently into creating that value. So we have one aspect of our experience, the conversation starters, we've talked about quite a lot now in terms of that proactive nudging.
Yeah.
The second aspect is what we call writing assistant, and that's that more traditional, or not traditional by any means, really, because it's relatively new. But it's the experience that some of us might be familiar with of that chat with the AI. Yeah. And what we've set up our Copilot to do is through chat, you basically have like a great collaborator right by your side to bounce ideas back and forth with. So whether you're starting from scratch, you're like, I have this post idea, but I have a blank page in front of me right now, and that's quite daunting. Or you've, come up with a draft. So let's say you're a leader and you've worked with your comms team, you've come up with a bit of a draft. Copilot can, from there, help you brainstorm. It can help you write, edit, rewrite. It can even, interestingly, give you feedback on your posts. Mm-hmm. So basically, you have this chat open with the AI on the right-hand side to your post draft on the left. And you can chat with Copilot like you would a colleague who just happens to be right by your side, ready to help you write a great Engage post. It'll offer suggestions of how it can collaborate with you. And if you ever need inspiration, we actually have an entire menu of like prompt or command suggestions, ways you might ask Copilot for help. But it's also really fun because you can actually just message Copilot and say, hey, how can you help me write a post? So even if you wanted to bypass all that user interface and checking out the menu and everything, you can just go to Copilot and say, Copilot, I don't know where to start. Tell me how you can help me write a great post. And it'll give you ideas. So I think it's pretty fun.
It is. And the way I try and explain it to organizations, and I've heard it a lot around the community and from Microsoft as well, is you tend to, regardless of the Copilot that you're using, really needing to treat it like an intern, right? So you're just talking
totally.
And try and talk to it in a way that you would to, an assistant like it is, yeah. or an intern, and just go backwards and forwards and things like that.
Yeah, and like you said, there's a bit of discovery there too, because if you're working with a new intern, it's like, well, I wonder what they're good at, and like let's give them a little info. Maybe they're super smart, great researcher, or like great writer, but they still might need a little bit of context. about how you like to write, what you like to write, what you want to write about, what the goal of your post is. And interestingly, when we combine the writing assistant aspect of our Copilot with those more proactive suggestions, what we call conversation starters, we are kind of preceding the Copilot with an awareness of the context or the purpose of your post. So if Copilot suggests that you might want to participate in one of the campaigns going on within your organization, when you start that chat with Copilot to collaborate on a post, Copilot already knows, okay, the goal of the campaign is XYZ. Successful posts in that campaign have looked like ABC, and it'll collaborate with you to create a post with a mindfulness of that, but also a mindfulness of the unique aspects that you bring into the collaboration. So we get your unique point across. It's really just, kind of context. I
think it's when you're creating content, does it think, I guess this isn't just specific to Viva Engage, but with Copilot, when you're creating or creating first drafts, do you think it's important? Does it make a difference to sort of give it context first? So let's say, you're talking to Copilot and you're telling Copilot that you are a copywriting expert, or you're a Microsoft 365 consultant, or you're, an expert in this field, and then give some outcomes that you're looking for, sort of setting that sort of context. Do you think that helps with the conversation and the output?
Definitely. I'd say really effective use of like the chat experience, like whether it's ChatGPT or Copilot and Viva Engage, definitely seeding it with or grounding it in a little bit of that information about you or your style or your goal with the post can really, really help you get the most out of it. And we are trying to take some of the burden of doing that off of your plate as much as possible. So understanding your role or your past storyline post, that you love to use emojis like I do, or that you avoid emojis at all costs. Understanding what your style is, what you typically write about, unique information that you might be able to bring to your posts. We are, working to make sure that our Copilot understands as much as it can about you comfortably, so that it can support you to achieve your goals.
So,
and actually, sorry.
Yeah. So it'll understand it'll look at what you've already posted and sort of the style of your writing, and that will just happen naturally, will it?
Yes. So that in our V1 will not be part of the functionality, but it is functionality that we are working on and exploring because, as we talked about before, and I'm realizing we didn't close the loop on the authenticity question, authenticity is so important to us, particularly, at Microsoft overall, but certainly within Viva Engage, where the purpose of Viva Engage is, each of us showing up as our unique selves within the workplace with our unique expertise that we can bring to the table, or our unique perspectives on work life and how we contribute to culture. And so a big question for us has been, how do we maintain someone's authentic voice and what they've uniquely got to say in Copiloted content? And so in the first version of Copilot, what you'll see is when you use it, Copilot does proactively nudge users to maintain authentication. So if you're working in that right-hand side chat like we talked about, and you create a piece of content with Copilot, and you move it then into your publisher draft space, that's right when Copilot's going to remind you of the importance of authenticity and how you can maintain it. So for example, ensuring that the content is in your tone of voice, is in your style, says something that only you could uniquely be bringing to the conversation. And then you can even ask Copilot to read your current post and provide personalized coaching about how you can increase authenticity. And it's doing that. And so we're basing it on so first of all, how do you define authenticity? That's a good question, right? And how do you define authenticity, particularly in Copiloted or AI assisted content? So that's how we're thinking about it so far. And that initial set of coaching will kind of only snowball from here to be more comprehensive. But we're looking at it there are 4 aspects. So authenticity in Copiloted content means there's some user generated content, right? Yep. So if I just I say, hey, Copilot, write me a post about AI or dogs or productivity hacks. And it'll do that. It'll write a post based on that.
Yeah.
But in that sense, has there been much user generated content? No. And so that might trigger to our Copilot. There's an opportunity for coaching in the user to maybe say, hey, instead of creating a full draft, why don't you ask me for a template? Which we actually do on our Copilot today. We have a skill that instead of drafting, we try to draft templates. And these templated drafts leave space so instead of like drafting an entire post on your behalf, it'll draft bits of the post, but then leave open spaces where it's like, hey, insert one of your favorite productivity hacks here and give an example of when this has been really effective for you. So that's all to elicit or coach from the user, like their own, what they've uniquely got to say. But then there's another angle on it too, where it's like, well, what if I don't feel like I'm the best writer? Writing's not my thing. I'm not really comfortable with it. Or I'm in a rush. Are there other ways for me to maintain authenticity? And that's where we started thinking about, in this very collaborative approach via chat, there's all this turn taking, there's all this direction that you're giving to Copilot. Yep. And so if you've gone through multiple iterations or multiple chats, giving Copilot direction and then producing a draft, it's almost like you're not the writer of the movie, but you're the director. Sure. And directors, as we know, put a huge stamp of style on the end result, even if they themselves are not, a writer. So it's like measuring those two things, and then measuring things like how much has the user edited the content and how much user-specific storytelling can we detect. All of these things help us like evaluate how authentic the content is, if it's bringing something unique to the network, and then coaching the user, not doing anything on their behalf, but just coaching the user to maintain authenticity.
Yeah. I mean, that's obviously really important. I mean, we don't want to be having, the same style of posts and the same words being used and all that sort of stuff across. I mean, totally. you can kind of start to see that now with content across different platforms, coming from GPT. You can kind of start seeing similarities in the way that the sentences are formed and words being used and that type of thing. So I think that authenticity piece, especially across Viva Engage and across internal communications, is really important, or else I think people would probably start to tune out with a lot of that sort of stuff as well. Yeah. I think without having that in the content. Now, I guess campaigns in Viva Engage would be pretty important, or communities would play a big role in actually, onboarding or rolling out Copilot as well. Have you seen that type of use case for Viva Engage for, Copilot in general?
They certainly can, and they're intended to. One of the use cases of communities and campaigns that I'm most excited about is exactly as you described, like helping with tools adoption, especially the adoption and understanding of very new technologies like these ones. So we saw, like, I give the example of the no code AI campaign, and a very similar one. Like if I was actually, we do advise this. If you're rolling out Copilot, Microsoft's Copilot or Copilot in Viva Engage within your organization, it's a great idea to set up a community. If you're only rolling out to a very specific number of users, you might want to just invite them to the community and say, this community is being stood up so that everyone here can, we're going to regularly share helpful resources, tips and tricks, but also so everyone here can share their discoveries of the most effective ways to use Copilot. Again, whether it's Microsoft Copilot or Copilot in Viva Engage. And then campaign, when we release Copilot in Viva Engage later this spring, it will be releasing to all users with a premium license. And so that could be pretty broad within an organization. And so depending on the scale of availability of Copilot in Viva Engage, you might decide to do a campaign. And through that campaign, people from across the organization, you don't have to restrict it to a community. It could be spreading across the organization, insight into how we're leveraging Copilot and Viva Engage effectively, or common questions people have, et cetera.
How do you, and this is, a little bit off topic, I guess, but it's more general Viva Engage type of usage. How, I get a lot of, and a common question is, how are we going to use Viva Engage? We've got SharePoint, we've got Teams, and now we've got Viva Engage. how do we keep up with, where do we go to do certain things? How do you are you checking Viva Engage all the time? I mean, how are you using and interacting with Viva Engage yourself?
Well, here within the Microsoft team and certainly Viva Engage team, we leverage communities pretty heavily. And at Microsoft, we leverage campaigns quite heavily. So to me, I like to think about, and what I've seen is communities are a great place to pursue goals that are stable over the longer term. Yeah. So for example, we have communities for product management, career growth. So that's not something that we're not going to finish product management career growth in a year. That's ongoing. We need to, everyone is continuously returning to that community because they're at different points in their career life cycle. And, we see, similar questions come up again and again over time. And we curate resources and people in those communities. In the form of those communities, we curate resources, we curate people that can support people on their journey to be great product managers.
And so, and are you accessing that, primarily through Microsoft Teams, as an app inside Teams? Is that sort of how people, inside Microsoft, I guess, how people are sort of interacted with Viva Engage? So it's all combined in there?
That one will come down to, individual by individual. What are your preferences?
It's going to be independent. It depends. I know.
Yeah. I would say, that to me is I know some people really prefer to have everything in one space, whereas some people like to spread across multiple windows. And depending on your level of involvement in something like Viva Engage, if you have a campaign ongoing, you might want to have a window open all the time. Just see how, keep up with things. Or if you're a community manager, that might be helpful for you. If you're someone like me, a product manager who gets pings from tons of different team members all the time, that could be super helpful. Or if you're constantly demoing Copilot, also helpful to have a window always open. So definitely a personal preference. And then the way that we see campaigns used, I think we hit on it a few times in the examples. That cross org, breaking down the silos, you didn't even know this was happening, but it means a lot to you. And now you know, because you saw a post about it on your Viva Engage home feed, or you got a notification at the right time because the campaign's trending, and or Copilot suggested it to you, something that you might be interested to contribute towards.
Yeah, look,
I love that aspect of it.
Absolutely. And I think both those value props around the proactive nature, but also creating, I think that's going to really help improve the uptake or the user adoption and the use of Viva Engage just overall. I think it's just going to make things a lot better for the product itself, in my opinion.
Certainly. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that, because that's definitely what we hope. Certainly, it's not an easy task to sort of. Well, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. To spin up a community management, community creation, it can be challenging. And so if you have some sort of Copilot assistant to help you in your community management efforts, how much nicer would that be? Or if you could ensure that Copilot was getting your campaign in front of all the right people, which it is currently helping people do, then how much more confidence will you have spinning up that diversity and inclusion campaign or that no-code AI campaign?
Yeah, definitely. Now, what does the future hold? We're obviously in the infancy of Copilot, especially in Viva Engage. What's exciting you about the Copilot interaction with Viva Engage, first of all, and then second point is the integration across different Copilots. What does that look like?
Yeah. So as you said, we are just at the beginning of all of this. We are right now in public preview with Copilot and Viva Engage. So if you have premium licensed users within your network, you can activate Copilot and Viva Engage today. We are GAing later this spring, again, with just the first version of our experience. A lot of what excites me about the future of our Copilot. So if right now our Copilot is focused on a certain set of proactive suggestions of where you could advantageously engage on Viva Engage, and it's assisting content creation on Viva Engage. Just imagine those suggestions, those nudges will just get smarter. They'll get more expansive in terms of the types of actions that they're encouraging you to take. Right now, it's largely centered around post creation and keeping up with your communities and campaigns. But there's a lot more that it can help you do. And there are many, like we talked about before, there are many different role types. So if our Copilot right now is centered on providing value that can be common across role types, I'm very excited for when we start getting into role-based Copilots. For example, we talked about it before, like community managers. We get so much amazing feedback from our customers and community managers about how we can assist them in doing their jobs a little more easily. And so I think we're definitely excited about those role-based Copilots being able to assist some of our champion users that exist in Viva Engage today. And, helping, we've touched on this a little bit, but those proactive suggestions and encouraging users to bring unique content, uniquely valuable content to the network. To me, I'm very excited about the potential for Copilot to help organize stories and knowledge across Viva Engage so that all the valuable content that people are creating throughout these networks can be easily accessed. They can be updated. They can even be suggested right when and where it's needed. Because we see in our customers, Viva Engage networks, they're creating value. They could be creating value for years and years. And sometimes content that was created years ago is extraordinarily relevant to a question that's still being asked today. Yeah. And so how can we make sure that, I sort of use this phrase, it sounds funny, but like, how can Copilot help content kind of transcend the barriers of space and time so that a virtual space, real time, so that people can get...
It's that discoverability, right? A lot of content, again, this goes across the whole platform, but the discoverability of really good content and valuable information across an organization. I mean, there's pockets that are, sometimes hidden away, but I think these are now going to be coming to the surface. And you touched on the proactive nature, especially in Viva Engage. And I think that's, for an organization that's using it heavily, is going to be really beneficial for people to actually find stuff as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we see even in like smaller scale networks too, obviously Microsoft's kind of an outlier. It's a very large network and we use it quite heavily. But we even see in smaller networks, it can be hard to, especially over the course of time, to connect people to the right content, right when they need it, right when it can be most helpful for them, right when they're asking that question. So that they don't need to ask it and wait for a response. But Copilot's actually like, hey, before you even post that, we got something you might want to check out.
Yeah. Now, is there any sort of integration with other Copilots? We've obviously got different Copilots all over the platform now. What does that what does that landscape look like?
Yeah, so that's another aspect of our future that I'm very excited about. So if we talked about at the very start of this conversation, the intent of Copilot is to help organizations, whether individuals or leaders or network managers, organizational managers, you get the most out of Viva, which means making sure that Viva helps them achieve whatever goals that they have within their organization. I'm really excited about the potential for, now that we've set up all these individual Copilots, for them to start working together so that use of Viva can be overall optimized and it can be clearer how you're meant to use goals with Viva Engage and Viva Engage with Viva Learning. And bringing them all together so that the sum of the whole is greater than the parts. Did I say that?
It is. Look, obviously, yes, as we touched on, and we are only scratching the surface really, really early on, but I know there are some really good future plans, especially around Viva Engage, but in the platform as a whole. Now, as we wrap things up, where can people sort of follow along and keep updated with the progress of Copilot in Viva Engage, first of all? Second of all, obviously connect with you and follow you as well. You're obviously sharing a lot of information across different networks. So how can people stay updated?
I think the best place will be the Microsoft blog. And I can provide some links to all the right places and existing content.
Pop those in the show notes. Yeah. Excellent. And yourself?
I am an avid LinkedIn user.
Okay, no worries. Again, in the show notes, I'll have links to all of those resources that Kristy will share, and also her personal LinkedIn profile. So head over there, follow along, and keep updated with Viva Engage or Copilot in Viva Engage. There's some exciting things coming. As we said, we've only just scratched the surface. It's only just been released. So thanks for joining. It was a great conversation. Great to hear about what's happening and the value of Copilot and Viva Engage. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.